now with the additional questions to get out there. Okay. Hey guys, welcome to our Tuesday night extravaganza. Is there an extravaganza? I don't know. We just, we got it done today. A really good IEP meeting just now in another state, and Sarah Bartley is going to take care of them with the thing of the deal. And yes, it's so good to work with people that are workable, that work with people. So there's that. Yep. All right. Somebody's name was Gigi something. Including parent concerns for enhancing the education of their child. And so it would be concerning for me if a school district denied that component for the parent. And yes, it's pink again. It's not really pink. It's velvet. I feel like you missed that already. I have a Stanley, but you know what? I gotta tell you, the Stanley's like my first husband. It seemed like a good idea, but it is not a Yukon. But it is 40 ounces, so.
Okay, Utah Feature Whirler says, can the psych refuse to do a daycare observation and not include daycare teacher comments in ETR?
Yeah, the daycare is not a private school. Yeah. I like how she said the psych. I feel like there's a lot of love there. Did y'all feel that? The psych.
It seems like there was probably.
Maybe like we're not going shopping together.
Right.
So I've got to ask a question first, Sarah. So we're doing the Lasso the Moon educational conference in Casper, Wyoming in April. I'm just wondering how many of you guys are coming to see me. I'm going to be one of the speakers, and the other speaker is that kid with the IEP. So I know you guys are all going to be flying out to Casper to see it. Is that a trick question? So the IEP team cannot be, the IEP team, if this is the first time IEP, then we need to agree to it. So you can't add something to it before you've had it. There's that.
Assistant Polish Queen, 1976.
That's a good year.
Right? Assistant principal will not let providers answer my emails about what is being worked on because I did stay put.
So if you filed a due process hearing, which then evokes pendency, which is the stay put criteria, then it wouldn't be unusual that the administrators are stopping you from communicating from people that might be witnesses that you call in the due process hearing.
Nikki McGinn, 15. Can an IEP team push for SDC because they are not accommodating his auditory processing needs?
So auditory processing is not an eligibility, right? So I struggle for helping parents understand that there's not specially designed instruction around auditory processing disorder impact, but placement decisions made by the IEP committee is based on need.
I hope I'm saying this name right. Susie Q, 79, said, what PD for SPED teachers do you suggest for support students with IEPs and MH diagnosis?
So, I mean, I do professional developments for school districts and states. The most important professional development is going to be knowing how to write an IEP that has ambitious goals, that's written to enable the student to make progress in light of their unique circumstances. Until we know that, it won't matter if it's mental health or OHI or vision impairment. If we don't know that, we shouldn't be at the table.
Joyous Unicorn.
versus the unhappy unicorn, which is probably on TikTok as well.
Can a new state, North Carolina, take my son from 360 minutes a month in speech from California to 30 minutes a month with no data?
So they can certainly adjust the IEP once you have been in their district for 30 days based on what they see your students' needs are. And I have to say, which may or may not be your case, I do get some IEPs from other places, and I'm like, well, that's a lot of support. And sometimes different states see things differently. But certainly during that time when you came, when you had the transfer IEP, they should have used those 30 days to write if there's a need for more testing, and they should have done that during that time.
Courtney Page 0903 says, can a school have an ARD months before the annual ARD date?
You can have an ARD anytime the ARD committee calls an ARD. So an ARD is an admission review and dismissal meeting in Texas. We call them IEP meetings. But yes, anybody can call an IEP.
Miss Barber 23 says, my daughter has ADHD and dyslexia, but is struggling with math. That must have cut off. I'm not sure what her question was.
Yeah, so if you're struggling in an area, you don't have to have that eligibility. You don't have to have a math eligibility to get help in math any more than you have to have a science eligibility to get help in science. If we've identified that there's a deficit in that area and it's presented in the present levels, we certainly can write IEP goals around that, add supplementary aids, and certainly look at schedule of service to add special education time.
So she followed up. They said she doesn't qualify for any accommodations for math with dyslexia and ADHD.
I would say, yeah, that's what I would say at the meeting. Maybe not do it that way. That's unfortunate that you have that limited information. If you'll read a little decision called Andrew F. Versus Douglas County Schools, March 22nd, 2017, the U.S. Supreme Court decision definitely teases out in that decision that if there's an identified need in the present levels, you don't have to have that eligibility to get support. So let's say that a student had a vision impairment. That wouldn't limit them from having reading goals. So that is an unfortunate, ill-informed, and illegal answer.
Tia Marie Brockman says, can a school get into trouble for my kid getting off campus several times? She has autism. She's 7.
Schools don't get into trouble, kids. They don't get into trouble. Here's the thing in the great United States. The federal government lets the states govern themselves as it relates to education. Then the states let the districts or the counties govern themselves. That's working out really good. So you don't really get in trouble. You get attention, awareness, and possible change when you file or complain effectively and efficiently. And I find that most parents do not complain effectively or efficiently around this scope of practice for the state, a district complaint or a federal complaint. And so when we learn to do that better, file more effectively, then we're going to bring about change.
Okay. I'm going to take 3 more and then I'll hand it over to Shannon.
Oh, I like that. It's 3 more. I'll take 3 more.
Number. Can a student qualify for ESY if there is no data to support regression in all areas?
Well, that's a fantastic question. Sure. So ESY has 2 prongs. Say it with me. 2 prongs. Number 1, documented regression on IEP goals with a profound amount of time to recoup that skill. Number 2, concern for loss of critical skills. So if you believe without the implementation of ESY, extended school year services, that the student is going to lose critical skills, then that's the 2nd prong. So you don't have to have documented regression.
Sue Jelly 103 says 5-year-old with speech language disorder can't communicate his struggles due to speech. What accommodations does he need?
I mean, that would depend on the student's unique circumstances. So we don't write accommodations based on the student's eligibility. We write accommodations based on their unique circumstance. So that's the federal law, right? The 2-prong test now, the Rowley Andrew F. prong. So number 1, did the state meet its obligation procedurally? Did they follow the processes? And then number 2 is a substantive question, right? Did we write an IEP to enable the student to make progress in light of their unique circumstances? And so a speech impairment tells me where the identified eligibility is, but I don't exactly know how it shows up for that student. But it should be listed in your speech evaluation at the end of each section, usually those evaluators will make recommendations to the IEP committee.
Send Red Pandas says, what is one thing to bring to an IEP meeting?
Snacks and something to chew on so you don't say things you don't want to say. You know what you need to bring to an IEP meeting? The ability to listen. Most people in an IEP meeting are just waiting to tell their position, and they're not listening. They're not listening. You're not listening. And so the best advocates, and you all are good listeners. And so you need to be able to be a good listener so you can be a good participant in that meeting.
I'm going to hand it over to Shannon.
Yeah.
Okay. Lacey Barnett says, my son has an AAC written in his IEP. The school we were transferring to said they cannot accommodate.
Oh.
And then she added, he is in pre-K and we have our own AAC.
So it's a civil right that you have the opportunity and ability to communicate with the same efficacy as the other student in the room. And so under the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights, the teacher is actually charged with being able to communicate with that student based on their communication needs, whether it's augmented or not, as efficiently as she does with the other students. So I would call that what's the word I'm looking for? Problem.
Can you receive speech therapy if academics and social skills are good?
You can receive speech therapy services if you meet the eligibility for a speech and language impairment in your state.
What is a READ?
A READ, it's a reevaluation of existing educational data. So once we've had the initial evaluation, after that, any other evaluation is called a READ. And what we do is we open up the document and we look at those areas again and talk about additional assessment.
Is it the school's responsibility to advocate to parents for extra sight for students with ED?
I would love for the answer to that question to be obviously yes. I love people that work at schools. They changed all of my children's lives, but mostly my son's life, who was in special education. Unfortunately, the more amazing school-based members that I meet, I think some schools are cults. I think they're just regular cults, and you better do what the leader says. And when they say jump, you better jump. And when they say now, you have to say now. So, over the last couple of years where I've had the opportunity since the great COVID to train people digitally around the world, we hear the same story, whether it's from Maine, would you agree, Shannon? Miami or Montana. And it's unfortunate that some schools treat their school-based members, but we've heard everything from, people being asked hundreds of times in our trainings, being told that when you get in the meeting, do not say that, do not say that, do not say that. And these are great school-based members who came with great data to share with the committee. I don't work at a school, so I'm not the one reporting that. But I mean, Shannon, you guys have been at the trainings. Alicia gets hundreds of emails a week, and we hear it from all over. And it's unfortunate because we had an amazing vocation called teaching. We first ruined it with state testing. Thank you, Pearson. And then we just have these amazing schools. But then, unfortunately, in some schools, you have to do exactly what your leader says. And if your leader does not have special ed in their bones, that's going to be a problem for students with disabilities.
Okay, my question just moved on me. Hang on, I'm going back up. Okay, here we go. Are kids with autism and ADHD related issues supposed to face suspension in school? My son is 6.
I don't know why my 6-year-olds are being... I had a 5-year-old the other day suspended. I'm like, what are we doing? I had a kid the other day suspended for throwing Legos off of his table. I mean, were the Legos made out of cement? Calm down, people. Simmer down and calm down. Have some queso from Texas and I don't know, a Bud Light. But no, they weren't hurting other children. He literally knocked off his Legos because he was mad. So it's unfortunate. But if your child has behaviors that impact his ability to learn or others, that should be captured in the LRE section. And then you want to make sure that in the behavioral section, or the section that says you can understand the student code of conduct, which I find comical because we all sit down and read students the student code of conduct. If there's a history of behaviors, I'm going to capture that there in case we ever have to end up at an IEP meeting addressing that, or if we end up at a manifestation determination resolution meeting.
Okay, Jewel on the farm asks, our co-op is telling our district wrong information. Who holds the co-op accountable?
Oh my Lord, Jewel on the farm. Shannon and myself have been held hostage by the co-op people. Can we just get an amen for that? I don't know what's happening in the co-op, but if you just take out that little hyphen, it's coop. I don't know who, like, I don't know, the co-op people are, they're unique. So, who holds them accountable is your state, right? So the co-op is still still the LEA representative. So I'd reach out to state compliance if I was having trouble. But Shannon, you and I both have PTSD from the co-op. Because what they don't do is cooperate.
That was good. Okay, this is regarding ESY. Kit Kat Katie 86 says, while we were talking about ESY, if I choose to not send my son to that, can that affect his IEP?
No. ESY is a gift, and there are lots of people that would love ESY, but they already have plans in the summer. It's, it's something that we have to address annually for a student with an IEP. Whatever pieces that you can attend that. But we certainly understand that parents have other plans. Parents have to work. Children are going to grandma. So certainly if you can participate and you believe that it would be meaningfully beneficial for your kiddo, certainly participate in that. Extended school year services. Yeah. This is what I say in some meetings. You have to worry. Alicia, she's going to extend the school year for all of them kids, whether they like it or not. Oh, I'm going to repeat the second prong for ESY. So ESY, extended school year, 2 prongs. Number 1, which they're going to talk about, regression, documented regression on IEP goals with a profound amount of time to recoup that skill. So I would say legally that's going to be a grading period, right? And that happens for some kids. Do we have schools that have documented regression on IEP goals? Let's say it together. Not very often, right? The second prong is that we are concerned for loss of critical skills. So we've acquired a skill and we're concerned that this 9, 10, 12-week gap, they're going to lose that skill or lose the totality of what they've gained.
Okay, how long does the school have to do recommended assessments once we agree and sign off?
Well, depending on where you live in the United States, you have 60 days or less. So in Texas, it's 45 school days. In some states, it's 60. In some states that start with the letter M, it's 30. I don't know all the states that start with the letter M because my assistant uses words like MKMHM, which I don't know if that's a state, but it's Isn't that right, Alicia? She's nodding. Yeah.
Who usually completes BIPs or FBAs?
Hopefully people that know the student. Doesn't that sound silly? So if I'm going to have an initial FBA, a functional behavior assessment, I'm going to ask for an LPC, a social worker or a licensed specialist in school psychology, to do that initial one. But after that, I'm comfortable with the behavioral specialist or the behavioral teachers or whoever works with that student that has knowledge of them to do an FBR, a functional behavioral review.
Is it okay to not invite a general ed teacher to an initial ARD if they are the only grade level teacher?
It's illegal to not have a general ed teacher at every IEP meeting on the globe, period. Did you say period? Period. Period, and I'm going to throw in explanation point. Explanation point. Period and explanation point.
Okay, Char.
People are like, what's the difference between an ARD and an IEP?
An ARD, that's in Texas, because in Texas we got to be different. So an ARD is an acronym that stands for Admission, Review, and Dismissal. It's just an IEP meeting. Same thing. So in Texas, when we say IEP, we're talking about goals, but nationally, when we say IEP, we're talking about the entire document. But in Texas, we had to do it different. We couldn't just leave it alone.
Okay, my son's school says no IEP until he is failing or behavior problem. Teacher is making accommodations.
Wow, I would ask her what page of IDEA is that on? You must have added it in since the 2004 reenactment muffin. So IDEA doesn't talk about grades or academics. It talks about an educational need. So I would say it sounds like you're running a temperature, ma'am.
Should the SPED teacher be asking me how to solve a problem?
The SPED teacher should certainly reach out to the parent because case law will say they're the expert to give them insight. But to solve a problem that's occurring someplace where the parent doesn't live or work would be hard to do.
My child has an IEP, works on her reading and writing. So far, she has only worked with a para, not a teacher.
So that's a problem. So the person that's allowed to provide specially designed instruction is a special ed teacher. So never been a waiver from that. Never, 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 never. I think it's October 4th, 2022. OSEP, Office of Special Education Programs. They're amazing. Sent out another letter to all the states. Hey, you guys, don't forget special ed, specially designed instruction is delivered by a special education teacher. Now, can paraprofessionals or aides deliver SDI? Of course they can, under the watchful eye and guidance of the special educator after they've worked with the student.
Okay, I'm going to ask a couple more questions and then I'll pass it on.
Okay.
What is required from a one-to-one aide for a child who elopes and gets physical when overwhelmed?
What is required as in like certification? Really good tennis shoes? That's not funny.
Right.
No, I mean, hopefully that person has been trained in proximity and how to de-escalate that student, but there's no requirements for that parent to have specific training.
Can a parent of a kid with ED who isn't aggressive refuse behavior support?
So if a student has emotional disturbance, there's many criteria in there. One of the criteria is being depressed. So you want to make sure that you at least have counseling as a rated service. And if they need behavioral support, then we certainly want to give them that. That behavioral support could be a social skills group. It could be counseling. It could be a class daily.
May parents request who their child's one-to-one para can be?
Yes. Is it a good idea? No. And the reason it's not a good idea, in my opinion, is that it sets up learned dependency, and those humans are not going to be there forever. And so when you request somebody specifically, those people have things that they have to do. They have to go to the doctor. They're going to have sick days. So certainly you want to have a great one-to-one para and then certainly a trained backup.
Jewel on the farm said, we are going to a 4-day week. Are you seeing that more and more?
I'm seeing that in rural districts, and then I'm seeing them take it back. Just kidding. Y'all need to come back on Fridays. So it's tough as it relates to special education. That certainly could be an OCR filing because special education kiddos, I don't know how you're extending that time. So in Texas, we have a thing called seat time, which is it's a set number of thousands of minutes that a student has to be in their seat, as it were, in Texas. So every state has requirements to meet their state standards. So I see that in some districts, but it's a bit of a mess. I can't imagine a child with a disability that I'm going to say, hey, let's add another hour onto their day.
Elise Yvette said, where did the guidance notification come from? I think she's wanting you to repeat where that guidance from.
So the OSEP, Office of Special Education Programs, they're fantastic. They're one of the 13 federal entities for education at the federal level. So the Office of Special Education Programs puts out guidance letters to schools and answers questions from people that write in letters. So if you have a burning question, you could write that in and see if they'll answer it. But they sent out a guidance letter in October 2022, and it said, hey, school districts, just remember, special education comes from special educators, nobody else.
Muddy Puddleston says, what if you have a behavior plan and IEP, but when my son has a meltdown, the teacher goes to admin?
So if going to admin is part of the BIP, then certainly do that. But I don't think the first thing is call admin. If it was calling admin, then we wouldn't need a behavior intervention plan. Calling somebody in the campus is not mitigating the behavior.
I have a good one, Sarah.
Okay.
The SPED teacher here, way over my state legal limit. What can I do? Students deserve better.
Agreed. What can you do? Do your best, right? I can't change setups in schools. And while I promise you, I understand and believe and know that there is a shortage in school districts, I also know there are certain places in school districts that there's no shortage, and has nothing to do with those people that teach those sorts of things in school. But the shortage for kids with disabilities has been the same since 1975. So, we do the best that we can to advocate for them, and, reach out to your leadership and see what they can do to, help with that.
Baby Piggy says, what should I request before our first IEP? Reports, ?
So before your first IEP, you want an electronic copy of all the evaluations that have been completed. You additionally want a full draft copy of the IEP document to review, knowing that it's just a draft and all decisions will be made by the committee in the meeting. Without that draft ahead of time, it's unlikely that I'll be able to make an informed decision, and we may have to reschedule.
Jackie Rose Grimsley says, I'm new to all of this IEP. What are your most helpful tips?
To stay student focused. Because at the end of the day, after the great meetings, the not great meetings, I'm not getting you an end of the year gift. I love you. You changed my child's life. It's about the child. It's just about the child. You're asking a school district to spend money that's not there. Your school district, your school county, your school city spent all of their money July 1st, 2022. So you're going in there and saying, hey, I would like for you to open your little treasure chest and give me money for Jude to have an evaluation for assistive technology and communication. And they're like, I don't know where you're from, lady, but that's not how we roll. And so you have to help them with the way that we're going to roll. And so we change lives one kid at a time, one family at a time. We do not change our position based on the school's budget or staffing.
Are IEP guidelines and standards the same across the U.S. or state-by-state basis?
So IDEA is federal, right? And it's like everywhere. And then states have their own regulations. If you look at your state's regulations, they'll usually have them in matching columns. They're not very different unless you're in Nevada. Did I say that? Yeah. We're in Nevada where you have to be really, really blind to receive blind services, but that's a whole nother training. But most states are pretty aligned. There are some states that have unique things, like in Washington, we don't have dyslexia, or Georgia, or Virginia, or in Kentucky, where we don't have adaptive PE. But most states follow the totality of IDEA, and no state is allowed to reduce the benefit of IDEA with their state regulations.
Megan Catherine 064 says, how long should a teacher try interventions before a student is evaluated?
So a student is only evaluated when the school offers them notice and consent and the parent signs. So that has to happen based on a referral. I would say that a teacher should do RTI for a grading period When that's not changing outcomes, then they should be referred for special education testing.
AJ Miser says student had a meltdown and school called her sister out of class to attend to her. Legal?
What did they do?
They called her sister to come out of the classroom to take care of her.
I think it's really helpful that we have children helping other children. Like I was in an IEP meeting the other day. I won't tell you where, Texas. And the AT specialist said when she gave the 3-year-old an assistive technology communication device, she had the other children, say it with me, the other 3-year-olds model the device. I said, what? So you passed around the communication device like a cup of coffee? I wanted to say you passed it around like something else, but of course I didn't say that. She goes, yeah. And he didn't even have any interest in it. So you have 3-year-olds who aren't potty trained, who don't speak much, modeling a voice output communication device to another 3-year-old who's not potty trained? Yes. How do you think that meeting went? It was like my first wedding. It was brief. It was really brief. We don't have 3-year-olds modeling special ed to other special ed. Hello? Yeah. No. It's no. No. 2 people on an IEP. The child between the ages of 3 and 22 with a disability and the school. Not other children.
Michelle Garcia 0120 says, what is your best advice for first-year special education teachers? I work with at-risk youth.
Well, first of all, I would just like to say thank you, 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 thank you. And we need you and we love you. And thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so just remain student focused, right? Working for somebody like at a school district or anywhere else is going to be tough, but remain student focused and follow your heart.
Can a child be held back because of his IEP?
No, because of his IEP. No, if an IEP was successful, then it was successful. If you want to have a child retained, that's an administration decision. It has nothing to do with special education. Nothing.
Can an IEP for speech be used for recent diagnosis of ADHD?
You can consider as a committee adding on the eligibility with an OHI form for ADHD based on the impact of that.
Vanio26 says, my son, ASD, is going to middle school next year. Can I ask for a 1-to-1 para to help him with transition?
So a 1-to-1 para, I rarely would recommend anybody ever have because of a million things. One, it skews the data. Almost all kids can be successful with support. It's very rare that I've seen a kid that needs to have a one-on-one para from bell to bell. Now, if you have medical needs, if you have safety needs, if you're harming yourself, if you're not being safe around others, if you're not keeping yourself safe, then I certainly understand that. But you don't need a 1-to-1 para for transition. That can be set up through staff.
My son has an so Joyous Unicorn again.
I love the unicorns.
My son has an AAC as an accommodation in an old IEP, and new school has not touched it all year.
Yeah, that would be a filing with the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights all day long. And parents or school-based members, listen to me. Listen, are you listening? Listen. When you have a communication device, I can pull all the minutes that it was used. So whether you say that you used it or not, when you had 455 minutes of instructional day or 380 minutes and it was used never, that's going to be problematic. So it won't be he said, she said. I'm going to show you the data, and that's going to be problematic.
Heidi H1313 wants to be the teacher's pet. So she said, I hope you know how beautiful you are tonight.
Oh, thank you. It's good lighting.
Is it? This other one said, Michelle 255 said, Special education teacher here. If a parent is quote unquote claiming that a student has Tourette's syndrome, and then she hasn't finished her question, but.
So let me just tell you a little bit about Tourette's syndrome. So that's really one of my jams. The Tourette's Association of America, TAA, you should all access them. They're phenomenal. First of all, you have to have a diagnosed tic for a year before the doctor can then add the condition of Tourette's onto there. So if they have Tourette's, there will be much medical documentation. It's sort of like having crawfish in Louisiana. Is that right? Yes. So what's a tic? So you can have physical tics, you can have verbal tics, you can have you don't have necessarily control over them. There's a great creator on this app that has Tourette's, and she's two hoots and a holler. I can't think of her name. I'm sure somebody knows. But yeah, it's a very real condition, and the information that comes along with kids that have Tourette's, they have like a 37% chance of attempting suicide, depression, struggle to be employed. So yeah, it's a very real thing, and it would be an eligibility under other health impairment. Bailey, yes, thank you. Somebody was really, see, I'm surrounded by smarter people.
Oh, she said the parent isn't providing any diagnosis from any medical source.
Without the diagnosis, we can't act on that as an OHI eligibility. And yes, this is a Talbot's jacket. I just want you to know that. You can never have enough crushed velvet, especially when you're going on tour. Sarah, did you have another question?
Angie Extreme says, so does that medical diagnosis override an educational diagnosis?
So there's not an educational diagnosis. So we have a medical diagnosis that you provide to the educational team to make a determination. Committees make determinations. And so based on that determination, we're going to see if there's an educational need.
Emily Mejino said, my son was just medically diagnosed with autism, and the school district wants to keep GDD in his IEP.
What is GDD? I don't know what GDD is.
Emily, help us with
the GDD.
Yes. Lala Saint said, you're awesome.
Thanks. Oh, global development delay. So I have to hate to tell you guys this. That's not a thing. Global development delay is not a federal or state eligibility. I don't know where people get that from. DD, developmental delay, is used in 7 states, but global development delay or general development delay is not an eligibility.
Melissa Stone says, my school district has a shortage and people quitting. They are no longer doing sets. Is this okay?
They're no longer doing what?
I think she means the AT, the set AT.
They're no longer doing AT evaluations?
Yeah.
Well, if they're on the planet, they have to do them.
My son is autistic. It's impossible for him to get a one-on-one.
It's possible for anybody in special education to get a one-on-one if there's an educational need.
What are some accommodations for nonverbal students? Sorry, I just moved, for communication.
So, I mean, I don't know so much about accommodations, but if your child's nonverbal, I'm going to ask the IEP committee to do an evaluation for assistive technology and communication, and a robust evaluation in communication, right? We're going to trial devices. There's 10 types of communicative intent. And so we want to make sure that we're not just giving a kiddo a device to request. The biggest barrier that I've seen for kids in special education is their ability to communicate. And so we have so much assistive technology. We have a huge training on Special Education Academy, which Alicia is going to tell you how you can go to the Academy for free. Assistive technology is one of the 8 pillars of IDEA. We have complete funding at the federal and state level for it. But if you don't have the training, you don't have the words, you may not get the service, support, or device.
We could take one more question.
Okay.
Amy Cotton says 10th grade with IEP in hospital. November, missed school, not made up, still failing. How does she proceed?
Well, she proceeds on Zoom so that me and Amy don't go to jail. So I love Amy. She's a dear friend of mine. You just keep bringing the heat. We keep bringing the heat by a paper trail, by sending the emails, notifying them of their failure to take care of her needs under her IEP and her identified medical needs that they know and have confirmed are occurring.
The Flaming Classroom says, I've tried writing in the BIP that suspension is not an appropriate consequence, but admin won't sign.
Yeah, well, that's just obvious. But obvious does not always happen at an IEP meeting. Can we agree to that? So, you know, I know it can be frustrating when people don't have the same passion for special education that you do, but thank you for serving kiddos. So if you guys are interested in joining the Academy, we have a little video on the TikTok, which is high graphic and everything. If you go to Special Education Academy, you can sign up under training. We have the Academy every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. And you can, where it says coupon, just click there and put in TikTok Live in all caps, TikTok Live, and then you can join us. We're in the middle of a series. We're finishing the series tonight. The continuum of services, the extent of non-participation, and LRE. We're going to talk about out-of-district placement, how you get that at the expense of the district. But we love you. Thank you all for your comments, the good ones, the other ones, and all the ones, because we love you and we're here for it. We love kids. We really want to train you guys so we get it right for the student. We get it right for everybody. So if there's something we can train you on, please let us know. Just email us at advocate@specialeducationacademy.com. We love you right back. And so we're coming to a state near you and a training near you. And so make sure that you keep us posted on what you want. And we love you right back. Remember, we want one thing, successful student outcomes. We'll see you guys in the next training.